Mildly infuriating.
Mostly upsetting.
Mildly annoying.
But there are some good enhancements as well that are mildly positive.
Yes.
What are those? So we all know Australia's two major frequent flyer programs, Qantas and Velocity, but for some strategic Australians, Singapore Airlines KrisFlyer Miles is another avenue to offsetting the cost of flying. G'day, I'm Tobias Venus, and joining me today is Point Hack's senior content producer and I would say KrisFlyer aficionado. It's Brandon Liu. How's it going, Brandon?
I'm well. How are you, Toby?
I'm good. I'm good.
It's good to be back here in a different studio today.
Yes, it is a different studio. We were kicked out of the golf club, but not before we got a few podcasts in. Before you answer my questions, we've got a listener question for you. Royally Road asks, in 2025, is it better to focus on flexible reward programs like Amex?
Mm-hmm. So if you asked me this question at the start of 2025, I would say it was a definite yes. Now it's a bit more touch and go. The reason being that over the course of this year, many programs have announced devaluations and cuts to the transfer rates or to earning rates. And that includes American Express membership rewards, which is going to have a big devaluation in mid-December 2025. So a lot of partners that used to be a 2-to-1 ratio are going to become a 3-to-1 ratio, an effective 50% increase in the number of points you need to transfer to those programs. So keeping that in mind, I guess you need to crunch the numbers to see if with the new transfer rates, it's still good for you. Ultimately, the benefit of flexibility is still there. So, if you do want to have a wide range of airlines that you can choose to fly with depending on seat availability, then I would still stick with the flexible points programs. But, it's also good to consider other avenues. And we'll talk about this later. Like even if you want to fly Singapore Airlines, you could achieve that by collecting points with Velocity. So we'll go into that later.
Yeah, okay. So at the end of the day, it's good to kind of diversify a bit, get the points for Qantas and Velocity where it's quite easy in Australia, and then have a credit card on the go too, maybe.
Yeah. That's certainly a good strategy because there are plenty of ways to earn Qantas and Velocity points without a credit card in Australia. But with flexible reward programs, generally you will need a credit card in that program.
Yeah, that makes sense. Outside of credit card programs, it could be beneficial to diversify into a third frequent flyer program, such as KrisFlyer.
KrisFlyer is an excellent choice for Australian travellers. So,
can you give us a general overview of what KrisFlyer is and how Australians can access it?
So KrisFlyer is the loyalty program for Singapore Airlines. And as most of you would be aware, Singapore Airlines has many flights a day into Australia. I think where I'm from in Perth, they're the biggest international carrier we have by seat capacity.
Oh.
They have 4 flights a day, and I don't think any other airline can matches that for international.
Also, more than Qantas?
More than Qantas,
wow.
Yeah. Qantas, we're talking about seat capacity. So Qantas has those long flights to Europe, but they are on the Boeing 787, which is a smaller plane because they have it optimized for the longer range flights.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a random tidbit.
Yeah, that's cool.
So if you fly to Asia or to Europe, even to the US on the non-stop New York flight, Singapore Airlines is a great choice. And because of that, you should definitely consider the KrisFlyer program, both for earning and redeeming your KrisFlyer miles. Another good thing about KrisFlyer is it uses a region-based chart rather than a distance-based chart. So both Qantas and Velocity price their reward seats based on distance, but KrisFlyer lumps everyone into different regions. So within those regions, you have some destinations which are a bit further than others. So you end up with what we call sweet spots, where you can get some really good value redemptions through the program.
Ah, interesting. Do you have one example? What's a really good sweet spot?
Well, actually, there are a few. So once again, if you don't mind me referencing Perth again. Perth to anywhere in Southeast Asia is a pretty good deal in business class. It's 40,500 KrisFlyer miles plus fees and taxes, and that gets you from Perth to Singapore, and then Singapore to pretty much anywhere in a 2 or 3 hour radius. So I believe that goes as far as Taipei or Hong Kong.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, okay. And the thing is, if you want to fly just Perth to Singapore, it's still 40,500 miles. So because of the region concept, it doesn't cost any extra miles to do that extra flight out of Singapore to somewhere else in Southeast Asia. So that's a pretty good deal. And there's another one with this one is going to be going away soon with the changes, and that's something we'll cover later. But the Middle East, South Africa, and Turkey, those three areas are all lumped into one region, and it's a really good redemption. So from anywhere in Australia, it's just 99,000 KrisFlyer miles to fly business all the way from Sydney to Istanbul or to Johannesburg or Dubai. And from Perth, it's even cheaper at 81,500 KrisFlyer miles.
So those are some good Singapore Airlines examples, but I'm imagining like the Australian brands, you can also use their miles for other partners.
Of course. So Singapore Airlines is part of the Star Alliance group, which has a lot of airlines, over 20 partner airlines across the world. And with your KrisFlyer miles, you can redeem seats on pretty much all of them. There are some restrictions with certain first class products and so on, but generally you can redeem your KrisFlyer miles across a wide range of partners in places that you wouldn't normally be able to access with your Qantas or Velocity points as well. The catch is they charge quite high rates for most of those redemptions, so it's not always the best use of your miles, but sometimes it's better to have some option rather than no options at all. But there is another sweet spot in when you redeem with Star Alliance partners, and it's the region between Middle East and Europe. So for that flight, it only costs 33,500 KrisFlyer miles in business, so 67,000 return. And because it's based by region, you can fly from anywhere in the Middle East to anywhere in Europe via any sort of interconnecting point, and it's still charged the same flat rate. So there's an example, you could fly from Dubai to Cairo and then Cairo to Zurich with Egypt Air, which is a Star Alliance partner. And including the connection, that's over 10 hours, and it's still only 33,500 KrisFlyer miles in business class.
Okay. So for Australians who might be listening and only really understand this stuff in terms of Qantas points or Velocity points, how much is a KrisFlyer mile worth, if that's something you can even answer?
Yeah, so it's a bit of an abstract concept because the points are worth, whatever you end up earning or whatever you end up redeeming them for, and also what you spend to earn them. But let's say you're transferring points from Amex, which at the moment is still, it's a 3-to-1 rate to KrisFlyer compared to a 2-to-1 rate for Velocity. So, the KrisFlyer miles are probably worth a bit more, but that's the beauty of the program, that, it's harder to earn those miles, but you need fewer of them to make the redemptions.
Yeah, cool. Well, I guess in Australia, we're kind of we're very obviously in a 2 frequent flyer point system.
Yeah.
We've obviously got Coles with Flybuys and Velocity.
Yeah.
We've got Woolworths with Everyday Rewards and Qantas.
Yeah.
And you kind of see that split all the way down through every duopoly that Australia has. How do we get KrisFlyer miles? Because you don't really see them in the wild.
No. So it's not easy to earn KrisFlyer miles with day-to-day transactions. There is one way, which I'll get to later. I would say that having a credit card with a bank rewards program that transfers to KrisFlyer is the easiest way, especially when you have the sign-up bonus and your day-to-day spending can be funneled via that card into KrisFlyer. So that includes your American Express membership rewards, your Amplify rewards, which is with St. George, and in your ANZ rewards as well. So programs like that, they all have KrisFlyer as a transfer partner. So, you can maximize your daily expenses to turn them into KrisFlyer miles. In Sydney and Melbourne, there is a relatively new way called Kris Plus. So this is an app which is quite clever actually, and I hope more people start using it, because really it's a mobile wallet. So you attach your credit cards to it like you would any other wallet, but when you shop at a Kris Plus participating retailer, all you do is scan the QR code that they have, and then they put in the purchase amount, and then it gets charged to your card anyway. So you're not paying any extra fees, but by making purchases through Kris Plus, you earn a regular supply of KrisFlyer miles. So it's not direct earn. So you earn something called KrisPay miles first, but KrisPay miles can be directly transferred to KrisFlyer miles at a 1-to-1 rate, as long as you do it within 21 days of earning it, or if you set up auto transfer. And so by doing that, your daily coffee or even a big drone purchase at the D1 store, they're all partners, you would earn quite a few KrisFlyer miles that way.
You can also get KrisFlyer miles through Velocity, I believe. You can still transfer. But I'm imagining the conversion rate's not quite there.
Yes.
Is that right?
So the KrisFlyer and Velocity do have quite a unique partnership in that you can transfer points between the two programs. And yes, the transfer rate is a bit weighted in both directions. So it's 1.55 to 1. So you're always going to lose some points or miles no matter which way you transfer. Given that it's so easy to earn Velocity points in Australia, and also given that KrisFlyer's rates are generally lower than Velocity's, it can actually be pretty good value earning your Velocity points and then transferring them over.
Yeah, okay.
So the other thing to be mindful of is Velocity often has transfer bonuses. So if you have your Amex membership rewards or your other bank reward points, generally during May and November of each year, they will have a transfer bonus of some amount, 10, 15, if you're lucky, 20%. So during those times, that's a great time to transfer all your accumulated points over to Velocity and you get the bonus. So if it's 20% bonus, for example, transfer 60,000 points from Amex, you'll end up with 36,000 Velocity with a bonus, including the bonus of 20%. And then that becomes 23,225 KrisFlyer miles. But if you were to transfer 60,000 Amex points directly to KrisFlyer, you'd only end up with 20,000 miles. Yeah. So actually by going through Velocity and with the transfer bonus, you end up with more KrisFlyer miles than going through KrisFlyer direct. Yeah. So that's a handy tip to hang on to, especially if you're accumulating points and you're waiting to transfer them in May or November.
That is a good tip. Definitely subscribe to the Point Hacks newsletter if you want to stay up to date on when those things are happening.
Of course, yeah, we'll be posting them as soon as we know of a big transfer offer. And
subscribe on Instagram because Brandon will probably post a story about it. How does redeeming KrisFlyer miles actually work?
Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward, especially if you use their website. And I do recommend doing that. There's rarely any reason that you need a call to redeem. So once you have the miles in your account, you essentially go to the Singapore Airlines website, log into your KrisFlyer account, select redeem miles, and then choose the flights you want. And the booking calendar is pretty good. It shows you at the top a ribbon showing what sort of price range the seats are at. So whether it's the lower saver price or the higher advantage price, and whether they are waitlisted or not. So if you see the lower number with no waitlist, then that means go straight to that date. There's probably the seats you're looking for available then. And through their website, they have other options as well. So if you book a return saver reward, you can select a stopover for free. And that's pretty easy to do on the website. So you just book your return flights and then be like, oh, actually, I want to stop in Singapore on this X date for 3 nights. And then they will extend the search out and then you can book the flight home and it's all done with no extra charge. And also if you book the higher advantage rate, you can do stopovers on each leg or each way. So on a return trip, you can stop over twice if you wanted to. And that's all, it's all doable on the website. So that's where I would start.
I imagine saver prices are quite difficult to find. Is that correct?
Well, generally, yes. But I have to say from personal experience, I find Singapore Airlines saver availability tends to be better than most other airlines for a comparable rate. So if you're looking like 355 days in advance, which is the max, you can often, and I've personally seen myself, 4 business rewards on really popular routes like Australia to Europe, Australia to Asia. So for anyone who's really prepared and you've got all the KrisFlyer miles ready to go, I reckon you have a good shot at finding, reward seats for 2 to 4 people without too much hassle.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Okay. And it's not just like, it's not like Qantas's Classic Reward versus Classic Reward Plus. The prices are a little bit closer together.
Yes. Yeah. So at the moment it is. There is a new option coming out soon, which will be similar to Classic Plus, but we don't know what it's like. But yes, the way things currently are, we have Saver and Advantage and they're both fixed price. So there's a table that shows what the numbers are. In some cases, they're actually not that far apart. And in some cases, they are very far apart. I'm not sure why it was priced like that. But if you do see an advantage reward on the date you want and you have enough miles, I would still consider going for it because, you get the seat you want and the change and cancel fees are also a bit more lenient. So, you get some benefits. And you also have the one-way stopover allowance as well. So
okay, so there's some benefits.
There's some benefits. So it's good to have both options, I think.
Okay. As a frequent flyer program, there is, of course, another benefit that most come with. Can you tell me a little bit about how Status works with KrisFlyer?
Yeah, so KrisFlyer is quite interesting with their Status. So they kind of have 2 separate programs in a way. So you have your traditional Status. So they have Elite Silver and Elite Gold. and you earn those by flying and accumulating elite miles. So it's essentially a calculation based on how much you've flown and times by a cabin modifier. So if you fly deep discount economy, it gets reduced by 50%. But if you fly like business or first, it's doubled. So the more you spend and the more you fly, then that accumulates. So once you reach 25,000 elite miles, you earn KrisFlyer Elite Silver, which is pretty equivalent to other airline silver status. So it gives you some perks, but not the main ones you want. The one that you want to aim for is, of course, Elite Gold. That's earned with 50,000 miles. So you do have to be flying with Singapore Airlines and Star Alliance partners quite regularly to earn that status. I would say it's easier to earn Velocity Gold status by comparison, which offers similar benefits with Singapore Airlines. Not the full range, but enough of a subset so it benefits some travelers. But separate to the KrisFlyer program, they also have what they call the PPS Club. And so this is elite spending club. Basically, you unlock PPS membership by spending the equivalent of 25,000 Singapore dollars a year on only business or first class flights with Singapore Airlines. So economy and premium economy doesn't count.
Okay.
So you got to be spending the big bucks.
Yeah.
And fees and taxes don't count either. So it's just the base fare and any surcharges.
Okay. So, well, comment if you feel like that's you. I feel like not many people listening will do that one.
I mean, I'm sure there's there's a few, self-funded flyers who probably reach PPS Club, but I would say the majority would be flying for work.
Yeah.
And they have contracts that, allow for business and first class, lucky them.
Yeah. What does that get you extra?
And so PPS Club grants you more priority with redeeming rewards and waitlisting. You also get access to Singapore Airlines business class lounge in Singapore. So I should differentiate that when you're KrisFlyer Elite Gold, you have lounge access, but in Singapore, it's the KrisFlyer Gold Lounge, which is a separate lounge especially designed for frequent flyers in economy. So the business lounge, you can normally only access with business class ticket, or in this case, with a PPS membership.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So there's a bit of differentiation
and that's
there.
the Silver Kris Lounge.
That's the Silver Kris Lounge, yes.
But the Gold Lounges, I've been to both as well, and I would say the Gold Lounge is what we would probably call a silver lounge.
Yes. So so don't pay attention to the colors, they don't match up. And then there's another tier above that called Solitaire PPS, and that's earned with $50,000 equivalent spend. So and that grants you first class check-in, first class lounge access, and a much greater range of perks. And you also, I believe, you get a supplementary card you can give to your partner with the same status.
Yeah. So PPS is spend-based on very specific circumstances. And KrisFlyer, what was the status called again?
Elite Silver and Elite Gold.
That's distance-based.
Distance flying base, and you can earn those miles on their partner airlines as well. Whereas with PPS, you can only earn that by spending on Singapore Airlines with SQ co-chairs, I believe.
Okay. That's, that one seems a little bit ambitious, probably for people who are just learning about KrisFlyer.
Yeah, it's never crossed my mind. PPS Club's not on my radar.
That's very cool though.
It's good if you can do it. And I know back in the time they used to have a lifetime status like for PPS. So, that would have been so good for anyone who had traveled a lot over those years.
Yeah.
Enjoy those perks for life.
Well, since we're talking about status, if you have Virgin Australia status as a partner of Singapore Airlines, what does that unlock for you? And is that maybe a better option for Australians?
Yeah. So yes and no. So it's easier to obtain, I'm pretty sure, I would say. So, but the trade-off is, as I mentioned, you only get a subset of the benefits. So you do get a few good ones. So you can use business class check-in, which saves quite a bit of time. And you can access Singapore Airlines operated lounges. So in most Australian capital cities, there is one of those lounges. So, that's all fine. And you got lounge access in Singapore and in major ports in Asia and also London. But that means that any non-SQ operated lounges are out of the question. So that's the difference. But if you're KrisFlyer Elite Gold, then you can access any Star Alliance member lounge or any partner lounge. But with Velocity Gold, because it's only a specific partnership with Singapore Airlines and Virgin Australia, you can only access the Singapore Airlines lounges.
Okay, yeah.
But you still get the luggage as well and the other priority perks. So it's not bad. It's just If you're flying outside of the Australian and Asian network, then you probably won't have lounge access.
Yeah. Okay.
That's for Gold and Platinum. And then there's the new Platinum Plus tier, which I believe now maps to Singapore Airlines Business, Silver Kris Business Access in Singapore.
Cool. Yeah.
And then if you're lucky enough to be a Beyond member, then you get first class lounge access, which is pretty sweet.
Ah, lovely.
Yeah.
What does it take to be a Beyond member? Parliament?
Parliament, huge spend with Virgin. Yeah. You have to be in charge of, the contracts and all that.
Yeah. So that's a pretty good overview of what KrisFlyer is, but there are some changes coming, and I'm sorry that we just told you all about it, but it might impact your experience a little bit. We'll get into all of that after the break. As you can tell, the world of frequent flyer programs is constantly changing. So if you want to stay up to date with everything points and miles related, we've got you covered with our free subscription. There are two options. You can get weekly news, hacks and deals sent straight to your inbox, or if you already have a comfortable stash of points but just can't find the flights you want, our reward seat availability and alerts will let you know when new reward flights are available, including all of the available dates we found. Our subscription has already helped tens of thousands of Aussies unlock better travel with the power of points and miles. If you want to join them, there's a link in the description. Welcome back. So from the 1st of November, KrisFlyer are making a few changes. They're changing the price of reward seats, more expensive, among other changes. Let everyone down a little easy here. What can we expect?
Okay, so the good news is, as far as devaluations go, this one is pretty modest. So things are going up, but not by too much in most cases. So if we revisit my favorite perfect example, the 40,500 mile redemption to Southeast Asia in business, that's now going to become 42,500 miles. So 2,000 miles more. Yeah, that's all right. I'll take that any day for the next few years, having that locked in. If you're flying Sydney to Singapore or Sydney to Asia, so previously you would have needed 68,500 miles. Now you're going to need 75,500 miles. So that's a 10% increase, a bit of a bigger jump there, but it's not terrible either. Where the biggest changes are is that sweet spot I mentioned with the Middle East, with Turkey and Africa. So what used to be 99,000 points in business, 99,000 miles in business all the way from like Sydney to Johannesburg is now skyrocketed to 124,000 miles. So that's the biggest one. That's a 25% increase.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, it's not the best use of KrisFlyer Miles anymore because the sweet spot was definitely where it was at. But compared to like traveling to Europe, it's still reasonable. So speaking of Europe, Melbourne to London redemption would have previously set you back 130,500 miles. That's now, if I check my notes, 141,000 miles. So that's also gone up a bit as well.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But so it sounds like some redemptions will be totally fine.
Yeah. And in fact, if you're traveling in economy, some are going down and some are staying the same.
Some are going down?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
For the shorter flights. So there's definitely, some good changes if, those routes affect you.
Yeah.
But generally, expect a small increase across the board, except for those really sweet spot routes, which is a big increase.
Yeah. Do you know why those ones in particular are increasing so much?
Well, I think they're just rebalancing
the
chart because they probably know lots of people are seeking out those sweet spots and they've realized, well, this isn't actually great value. So, we're going to just have to retweak it.
Yeah. So they're selling a few too many tickets and realizing that they could charge for them.
I mean, if you look on those flights, often it's really hard to get saver seats anyway because a lot of people are after them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So it makes sense that they would want to rebalance it.
Yeah. So there are those changes, which are mostly upsetting. Maybe that's a bit too strong of a word. There are those changes.
Mildly infuriating.
Yeah,
mildly annoying.
Mildly annoying.
Yeah.
But there are some good enhancements as well that are mildly positive.
Yes.
What are those?
So if you are trying to earn elite status with KrisFlyer or with the PPS club, you can do a bit more of that with on-the-ground spend now. So this is a permanent change. So for KrisFlyer, I believe you can earn around 1 mile per dollar, so Singapore dollar spent through various websites or apps. So that includes Pelago, which is their experiences or tours booking website. And I've used that a few times. It's pretty good. And also Kris Plus. And with PPS Club, I believe you get free. You get one PPS dollar value per $3 spent, so it's a bit harder there. But the thing to note is they are capped, so you can only earn. I think for the KrisFlyer status levels, you can earn 20% of your yearly requirement via this way, and for PPS Club, it's closer to 10%.
Okay.
Yeah, so still handy. It saves you from flying, and if you're going to buy those things anyway.
So for Australians, how do you actually earn these status credits through spend? Like which programs and companies are limited?
Yeah, so these elite miles you can earn through the Singapore Airlines affiliated companies. So that includes Kris Shop, Kris Plus, and Pelago. And with Kris Plus specifically in Australia, you'll earn the elite miles based on your Australian dollar spent. So that's one PPS value per $3 spent, or one elite mile per $1 spent for those silver and gold tiers.
Yeah. The Australian dollar's normally a little bit lower than Singapore's, isn't it?
It is. So this benefits us for now. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. It doesn't sound like a lot of Australians would be earning their status that way, though, would it?
No, I don't think so. But any way that reduces the amount of flying you have to do can be positive, especially if you're just a bit short. Your options are like, do I take a flight up to Singapore and back, or maybe I'll just buy this thing through Kris Plus and then it's all sorted.
Yeah.
So it's good to have that option, and sensibly, Singapore Airlines have limited it to a low percentage of how you can earn miles this way.
Yeah, if you've got a bucket of money, you could probably just earn status through buying a couple of things, right?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, if it wasn't limited.
Yeah, that makes sense. Obviously, a lot of frequent flyer programs have changed this year.
Yes.
A lot have gone up in price, the amount of points you have to spend to fly or miles. How does this one stack up? What do you think?
Yeah, so overall, look, devaluations happen, and as far as they go, this one is not too bad. So it could be worse. I think that's the best way to say it. So for the most part, you'll probably need 5 or 10% more miles, which you'll be able to earn eventually. It's just for those very specific sweet spots where it's going to come up a lot. So you can't really rely on those lower pricing amounts anymore. Yeah, but personally, it's not really going to change how I interact with KrisFlyer. So I'm still going to be earning those miles. Probably, transferring most of them from Velocity, to be honest, and then sending them to KrisFlyer, and then, booking my Asian business class trips around there.
Yeah. As someone who collects KrisFlyer miles, for people who just learn about the program through this podcast and want to get started and maybe think it's a good third option for them, what would you suggest they do?
So I would start by looking to see if you can join a bank rewards program. If there's a few that have KrisFlyer as a transfer partner, most of them are 3-to-1 rates, so do keep that in mind. But otherwise, go all in with the Velocity ecosystem, because with the bonuses and the ease of earning Velocity points without credit card spend as well, that's probably the second easiest way that you can earn your KrisFlyer miles.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And if you're in Sydney or Melbourne, you can use the
Kris Plus app.
Yeah. Perth getting it anytime soon? Yeah.
Doesn't look like it. A lot of the retailers are the same. There's a few big chains, but clearly they just haven't got enough traction yet for the other cities.
What's the best redemption you've ever had with KrisFlyer?
Yeah, look, I don't want to rub it in to people, but it was one of the ones that will become obsolete in a few short weeks. It was my honeymoon. So we went to South Africa for our honeymoon.
Yes.
We flew there with, so we did a kind of a mixed booking. So we flew Perth to Singapore in business with Qantas points. And then from there, we flew Singapore to Johannesburg with Singapore Airlines, but that was with Velocity points. And then coming home, we redeemed 2 business class seats all the way. So Johannesburg to Singapore to Perth. And that was at the very nice low rate of 81,500 KrisFlyer miles per person. Right. Yeah.
You really made use of all 3 frequent flyer programs.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of our trips actually are like that because, I earn points in all programs.
Yeah.
And every program is different with seat availability and pricing. A lot of our holidays are pieced together like that. Like I'm going to Turkey pretty soon, and we're flying there with Qatar Airways booked with Velocity points, and then flying back Qatar and then Malaysian Airlines to KL via Avios, which I transferred from membership rewards.
Okay.
So yeah, we're always splitting up our journeys that way.
Yeah. Well, if you want to learn how to travel like Brandon does and make use of every point and mile available under the sun, you can learn more by subscribing to this podcast or hitting us up on the Point Hacks website, and follow us on Instagram while you're there, while you're at the computer.
Why not?
My favorite redemption, if anyone wants to watch more videos on YouTube, I've done one KrisFlyer redemption in my life, and it was transferring velocity points over so I could fly Singapore Airlines suites. I did that a couple of years ago. It's basically a room on a plane.
It looked incredible. I haven't flown it.
Yeah, okay.
No. I've flown the old suites, but not the new ones yet.
Yeah.
I need to get into it.
It was a midnight flight, so I slept the whole time after eating all the food. But there's a whole bed just hanging off the wall, so it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
If you want to watch that, the video is popping up now, or there's a link in the show notes if you're listening along. Subscribe, and as we say at the end of every episode,
this is a quote from a video game I've been playing, Death Stranding on PS5.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. Keep on keeping on.
Oh, that's good. You're playing Death Stranding at the moment.
Yeah, it's pretty motivational. I was like, there's a lot of devaluations going on, but you got to keep on.
Yeah, nice.